Welcome to episode 3 of How to Feel Better. I'm Liz, and you're already halfway through this complete transformation system. In our last episode, we covered how your thoughts create your feelings and introduce you to your future self. Today, we're completing the Think framework with the 3 elements that will keep you aligned with who you're becoming: inspiration, integrity, and intention. That makes up the I. Then we're going to tackle the part Larry hates most, the N and the K. That stops all negotiations and get you taking action with what you already know. By the end of this episode, you'll have the complete system for managing your mind that I have used successfully to transform myself and my clients. There will be no more letting Larry run negotiations about why you can't, shouldn't, or won't do what you said you'd do. Ready to complete your mental toolkit? So let's finish think. I, inspiration, integrity, and intention. The I in think is all about who you show up as. It's your inner compass. Inspiration is what lights you up. It's the why behind what you do. Without it, action will feel heavy. Integrity is doing what you say you'll do, even when no one's watching. It's your trust with yourself, and that is everything. Intention is choosing deliberately, aligning what you do with who you want to be and the results you want. When you mix these 3, you stop spinning your wheels. You stop letting your want to collide with your I can't and start creating a life and business that actually works. One of my clients, Danielle, wanted to launch a new coaching program but felt frozen. We uncovered that her inspiration helping people lose weight without dieting was getting buried under "I don't have enough time" excuses. By setting a clear intention each week, even if it was just a small action, she started to create momentum. Within a month, she had her first paying clients. Inspiration without intention, just a dream. Intention without inspiration, it's a chore. Both together, magic. Inspiration, what lights you up? This is the first exercise. And as you all have heard me say by now, do the work, the work works, don't do it, we stay where we are. Energy flows towards what excites you. When you're connected to your inspiration, resistance dissolves and action feels natural. You feel empowered. So this exercise is very simple. What lights you up about your work or life right now? Write 3 things that inspire you. And I want you to notice, how does your energy shift when you think about these things? Now, I want to really highlight here, this isn't in the book, I've gone off script, is that when I use inspiration, I often will use inspiration when I am a bit lost, a bit confused, a bit not sure what to do next. I will go and watch or look at or find something that I know creates that feeling of inspiration. And when I'm feeling inspired, it's because my thoughts have changed. So I might, for example, go and look at a dressage video, and I might watch my trainer do something that always inspires me. And I think it's because probably the thought that immediately gets planted in my head is, how cool will it be to do that? And that inspires me. So that's the reason I love inspiration. So let's now get into integrity. Where are you off track? Because integrity isn't about perfection, it's actually about alignment. Where you're out of alignment is where your power leaks. So let's get honest. This isn't about judgment or self-criticism, which is always Larry's way of staying in control, right? If you start to judge yourself, you're going to have feelings that aren't going to inspire you to act. So this is all about that new awareness, because you cannot fix what you will not face. So where or what or how, this is those 3 questions, and this is in the exercise. Where are you cutting corners or avoiding your own standards? What's one standard you keep breaking with yourself? What would change if you honored the standard for 7 days. Intention, your next deliberate move. Intention is inspired action with integrity. It's not about doing more, it's about doing what matters on purpose. Pick one small, deliberate action this week that aligns with who you want to be and the results you want. My intentional action this week, when will I do it? Be very specific, because remember, we want to time bound it. How will I know it's done? And then there's a little weekly commitment. I will X by Y because it aligns with who I am becoming. Here's an example from my riding life. I will ride Leo by Sunday 5 times. That's really badly constructed. In fact, what I would say is, I will ride Leo 5 times every week. So my by becomes every week because it aligns with who I am becoming. Integration, the 3 I's working together. How will you be showing up inspired, in integrity, and intentional so that your outcome changes? Reflection. When all 3 I's are aligned, what becomes possible? What would you stop tolerating? What would you start creating? The 3 I's in one line. Connect to what lights you up. Honor your standards and act with purpose. This is how transformation begins. N. No negotiations, no excuses. The N is about drawing a hard line with yourself. Your primitive brain, what I call Larry the Lizard, is designed to keep you safe and nicely tucked up in his cave. For him, safe means avoiding pain, conserving energy, and sticking to what is familiar, which also means Larry, he's a master negotiator. He'll whisper, you can start tomorrow. You don't really feel like doing it today. This one little thing won't matter. And every time you negotiate with him, you break trust with yourself. And that is the I in think. The N is where you decide, I'm not going to use my excuses anymore, and I'm not going to negotiate with myself, and I'm not going to believe the stories I've told myself. You see, I used to tell myself I'd go for a run in the morning, unless it was too cold, or I was tired, or I had so much work to do. And guess what? Larry always won. Once I drew the line, no excuses, shoes on, out the door, suddenly it wasn't a battle anymore. The decision was already made because Larry loves these repeating thoughts that have worked for him before. Some of Larry's automatic thoughts may be creating anxiety, worry, and frustration, but you don't even realize it because they're so unconscious and you have practiced them so many times. They actually feel very normal. This is how you're right. This is just your personality. This is just how you handle stress. This is just how you think about money, relationships, your body, your business. But here's the thing. These thoughts aren't actually you. They're just the patterns Larry has practiced. And when we dial into this and really slow things down so we become aware of them, we get to decide to break that pattern. If you are constantly feeling anxious, upset, angry, it's because of the thoughts Larry's been thinking for you. You want to pay attention to those thoughts and learn how to change them into thoughts that actually serve you. Here's the key. Sometimes what you think aren't actually your thoughts. Slow it down, become aware of them, and then break the pattern. Okay, side note, some people think I'm being a bit what is that word when you have a couple of personalities inside your head? But the reason I talk like this and I talk about they're not actually your thoughts when they actually, of course, are your thoughts, I understand that. It's simply because of this. Larry is my reptilian brain. I can't call Larry me because if I call Larry me, I'm going to have more negative thoughts about myself. So if I think of Larry as this external being, and he is all of the thoughts, all of the ways I have created habits, patterns, and routines in my life until I understood my think framework. So those are really well practiced. I had 40 odd years doing those things. So now I know that some of the thoughts that I have thought since I was a little kid, they are what I mean when I say they're not actually your thoughts, because my 4-year-old self thought them when she interpreted something and make it mean something about her. And so that's what I mean there. So I just wanted to have a sidebar, and that's the joy of being on the audio, right? Alrighty, let's get back into it. Embrace emotional adulthood. This will completely change your life. Emotional childhood is when we blame events or people for how we feel. I feel this way because of what happened to me. I feel this way because of what you said. Emotional adulthood is when we take full responsibility for all of our feelings, no matter what happens, no matter what anyone says to you. You are the one who manages how you feel. Let me be clear though. You are never responsible for trauma, abuse, or harmful things that were done to you. That's not your fault. And you do not need to forgive anyone or let anyone off the hook. But what we can take responsibility for now, and we do this because of how we get to feel, is how we choose to think about it. This doesn't mean blaming yourself. That's still emotional childhood Larry thoughts. That's what I was just referring to, right? This means accepting the thoughts matter and that how you feel is what matters most. When we choose to think differently, we can immediately change how we feel. And that changes everything. Not because we're excusing what happened, but because we take our power back. And when we become fully aware of all of this, we can then easily recognize the patterns, the excuses, and the way we negotiate. We can stop operating from who we've always been and start working from the H, who we want to be. This is where no negotiations, no excuses becomes powerful. We stop letting Larry run negotiations about why we can't, shouldn't, or won't. And we start showing up as the person who simply does what needs to be done. Every excuse you accept trains Larry to offer more. Every negotiation you entertain teaches him you don't mean what you say. The line is the line. Now we get into the exercises. Spot Larry in action. Larry's favorite trick, making excuses sound reasonable. Let's expose his greatest hits. What's the excuse or story you hear most often in your head? Write it down. What other favorites does Larry like to use? For example, I don't have time. It's too late now. What would even be the point? It'll never work. Truth versus story. Facts don't negotiate. Stories do. Larry loves a good story that allows him to stay in his cave and do nothing. Remember his motivational triad? Seek pleasure, avoid pain, conserve energy. He's in his cave. He does not want to budge. So future you deals in facts from now on. Look at your biggest excuses above. Is it a fact or is that Larry? If it's a fact, what's the real constraint? If it's Larry, what's the truth underneath the story? Your line in the sand. Negotiations always happen in the grey. Eliminate the grey. Draw the line, hold the line. When one area in your life or business, oh, sorry, apologize. What's one area in your life or business where you will make a non-negotiation decision today? My non-negotiable line, and then you write that down. No excuses, no negotiations. The line is the line. Whoop, whoop. You are now 90% through the think framework. You've mastered thoughts, how, inspiration, integrity, and intention, and no negotiations and no excuses. Coming up, knowledge. K for knowledge. Here's the truth. You already know enough. You don't need another certification. You don't need to binge more podcasts or sign up for another freebie. You don't need to wait until you've learnt everything to start. Larry loves to trick you with knowledge seeking. He says, you can't start yet, you don't know enough. If you take just one more course, then you'll be ready. Better keep learning because doing it actually feels risky. I need to learn more as an excuse to avoid taking action. But here's the thing, knowledge doesn't move the needle, execution does. And you already have enough knowledge to take the next step. I had a client who had binders full of notes from every single program under the sun. I remember her very specifically. She thought the missing piece was more information, more certifications, more learning. But once she finally stopped studying and just used what she already knew to put her offer out, she actually started to sign clients. But more importantly, she figured out how to apply it. Because remember what I said way back when? You never find the how until you've done it. So when I also started coaching, I also thought I needed to prove myself by piling on more credentials. I actually have 4 coaching certifications. So I went through 4 coaching skills. Do you know how I've learned to coach even more effectively? By coaching. Big, interesting fact, that one. So what is the truth? I already had enough to help people. The moment I started working with what I did know, everything shifted. My confidence came from doing, not from collecting more knowledge. Constrain and simplify your life. You have about 60,000 thoughts per day. When you don't manage your mind, what are you feeling most of the time? Is it overwhelm? And what does overwhelm drive you to do? Procrastinate, quit, change direction, doubt yourself? Your brain needs supervision. It needs to be told what to do. You have to direct it. Tell it what you want it to focus on, what feelings you want those thoughts to create. You need to constrain what your brain is focusing on so you can get new results. So this is think, and what it allows you to do is slow down and become aware. Let's say you noticed yourself in N, negotiating or making an excuse. A quick way to shift it is to go back to the I. Reconnect with your inspiration, integrity, and original intention. Next, check in with the H. Who do you actually want to be? Then ask yourself, what thoughts would that version of you have right now? That's how think works. You can move up and down the letters and come back through it, looping through it as many times as you need. Here is an example in action. This one is about life and horses. Go figure, right? When I was working with Leo on a new exercise, he kept resisting, struggling. Larry immediately whispered to me, it's too hard. It won't work. People will think you can't ride. Just give up, move on, do another exercise he can do. I paused and I ran through think. I, inspiration and integrity. I want to be a calm, confident writer who communicates clearly. H, who I want to be, patient, consistent, and observant. T, thoughts. I need. I will stay calm. I will take it one step at a time. I will notice what's working and what it isn't, and I will adjust gently. Example in action, business. A client kept putting off sales calls. Larry's voice was loud. They won't buy. What's the freaking point? It's awkward. Don't do it. Don't. They'll say no. She paused, ran through think, and realized I, inspiration and integrity. She wants to help people and show up in her business. H, She wanted to be a very confident, reliable entrepreneur who kept her promises. Thoughts: I am capable. I am prepared. I will take action even if it's uncomfortable. She made the call and not only booked the client, but proved to herself she could overcome Larry. That is think in action. By thinking this way, I stayed consistent, Leo relaxed, my client made a sale, and we all succeeded. That's think in action in real life. The goal is simple: create the thoughts that shape the version of you want to become. Someone who lives in integrity, stays inspired to grow, and knows that they have what they have is already enough. I'm just going to segue here a little bit because I think for me, sometimes it's easier when I just speak rather than read. So the way I really developed think is, if you can imagine this, I'm sitting on Vinny because it was all on the back of Vinny, and we are literally not making progress. And so I had to understand what feeling did I have, because my feeling is where I got my awareness from first, and it was usually frustration or anger, honestly, or defeatedness, like it's never going to work type feeling. And so what I had to understand is that that didn't enable me to train him calmly, patiently, and with care. And so I knew I would have to stop, and I literally did. I stopped him, dropped the reins, let him walk around while I organized the thoughts in my brain, and then I went to work. So what do I actually want to feel? I want to feel confident. I want to feel like I know what I am doing. And so therefore I thought, well, who do I want to be? Well, I want to be the Grand Prix dressage trainer. That's who I want to be. And so what would they be thinking? And that's where everything comes together, because what they would have been thinking was it's natural that he will struggle with learning something new. That just completely relaxed me. I just didn't have the same frustration, anger, or defeatedness. I'm like, oh, yeah, of course, it's natural. It's absolutely natural that it's going to take him time. He's got to figure this stuff out. And by having that thought, the feeling went away, the calmness came back, and I was able to carry on. That's how it works. That's why it was life-changing for me. I hope that explained it a little more clearly. So, as I said, congratulations, you've now completed the Think framework. You know how to catch Larry, shift your thoughts, embody your future self, stay aligned with your inspiration and integrity, and stop negotiating with your excuses. But knowing how to think differently is only half the battle. In our next episode, we're moving into plan, how to set yourself up for success by deciding ahead of time how you'll handle obstacles, emotions, and setbacks. This is where we move from mental mastery into strategic action. So I will see you in episode 4.